Hello dear students, welcome to Bajirao IAS Academy, the Hindu news analysis. Today is 12th September 2024 and today we have some interesting and important news articles for the discussion, and one by one we'll try to discuss them in a very detailed manner. And before discussing them, yesterday I have given one prelims practice question and it is a polity based practice question, and the question is, who among the following have the power to increase the retirement age of judges of the High Court and the Supreme Court of India? And in fact, if I can tell you, this is a very important question, and in fact there were questions based on this particular theme previously asked even in UPSC and several other state public service commission examinations. And if you carefully look at the options, you can answer this question. Only Parliament have the power to increase the retirement age of the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court as well. So therefore the correct answer for this question is option C, Parliament. And if you look at the explanation of this prelims practice question, so we all knew that the retirement age of judges of the Supreme Court of India is 65 years, and the judges of the 25 high courts across the country retire at the age of 62 years. You have to remember this. The judges of the Supreme Court of India retire at the age of 65 years. However, the judges of the high courts across India retire at the age of 62 years. And in fact, the Constitution 114th Amendment Bill, so this 114th Constitutional Amendment Bill was introduced way back in the year 2010. So the objective of this Constitutional Amendment Bill is to increase the retirement age of the High Court judges to 65 years to bring this age at par with the judges of the Supreme Court of India. So however, this Constitutional Amendment Bill was not taken into consideration of the Parliament, and in fact this Constitutional Amendment Bill lapsed with the dissolution of the 15th Lok Sabha. However, the essence of the question is that the retirement age of the judges of the both Supreme Court of India and High Courts of various states across India would be decided by the Parliament of India, right? So Parliament is the correct answer for this particular question. And today also I have another very important prelims based practice question. The question is, recently formed Middle Eastern Quad consists of which of the following countries? The countries are India, Israel, USA, Saudi Arabia and United Arab Emirates. So you need to select the correct answer from the below given options and try to answer this question in the comment section. And without any further delay, let's get into the discussion and let's understand all important articles that we are going to discuss in this session. The first article is an editorial which is given in the Hindu newspaper, and this editorial is very important from the gender studies paper 2 point of view, because in gender studies paper 2 India and its neighborhood is a syllabus topic, and even gender studies paper 3 also it is very important, because gender studies paper 3 we have internal security as a syllabus topic. Bangladesh from the internal security topic is also very important because of the militancy and the insurgency which is existed in several states of northeast of India. And gender studies paper 2, as I have already told you, India and its neighborhood relations are very important. So this editorial that we are going to discuss is very important from gender studies paper 2 point of view and gender studies paper 3 point of view as well. And coming back to this editorial, we have been discussing the developments in Bangladesh from last 1 month and recent unrest that took place in Bangladesh. And in fact this particular unrest that took place in Bangladesh has led to a significant political turmoil, a political crisis that took place in Bangladesh. And in fact this political crisis in Bangladesh has led to former Prime Minister of Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina resigned, and she also fled the country amid the widespread students' protests across the country. So we all knew this context because we have been constantly and regularly tracking developments that have been taking place in Bangladesh since the students' protests have erupted in India's eastern neighbor. And after Sheikh Hasina resigned as a Prime Minister of Bangladesh, the interim government was formed. This interim government was headed by Muhammad Yunus, and in fact this particular interim government headed by Muhammad Yunus now facing challenges because this interim government attempts to stabilize the situation which is prevalent in Bangladesh, with implications for regional geopolitics and even India's strategic interests in the region, right? So this is a brief context of this particular article, and first and foremost we'll try to understand the current instability which is existing in India's eastern neighbor of Bangladesh. And if you look at the developments in Bangladesh, protests were started in Bangladesh, and these protests were also known as the anti-quota students protests, and over a period of time this anti-quota students protests have turned into the anti-Sheikh Hasina regime protests. So initially these protests were triggered as a dissatisfaction with the existing quota system in Bangladesh for government jobs, and this dissatisfaction against the quota system escalated into a widespread demonstrations against the former Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina. And in fact her resignation because of these widespread protests and widespread violence that took place in Bangladesh, and her resignation and subsequently Sheikh Hasina fled Bangladesh and she has got refuge in India, and that reflects the security of the public dissent, the severity of the public dissent which is prevalent in Bangladesh, and even the resultant power shift from the existing earlier existing Awami League headed by Sheikh Hasina to now formed interim government after the resignation of the Sheikh Hasina, led by this interim government. As we have already discussed, it is led by the economist Muhammad Yunus. And in fact this interim administration as of now is supported by the Bangladeshi army, and in fact this interim government has faced a lot of public unrest and public protests, and that has led to the forced resignation of top dignitaries in the Bangladesh. And in fact, so these public unrest and public protest has led to the resignation of key figures including the Chief Justice and even the central bank governor as well, and the government's legitimacy and stability are questioned as it navigates the ongoing unrest and even the political pressure as well. So however, the cause of concern is that as of now, because of existing instability and unrest would eventually provide opportunities for India's adversaries to come into Bangladesh and create more problems for India. For example, Pakistan, China and even USA have been looking for such opportunities in South Asia, and instability in South Asia and making India preoccupied with such instability and violence in South Asian region would strategically benefit those respective countries. And because of that particular reason, the current instability which is existing in Bangladesh would open the opportunities for major powers including US and China, and they can come to Bangladesh and they can intervene in Bangladesh, and they could also eventually aim at securing the strategic advantages in South Asia. And what sort of advantages they would usually secure, because one thing that we need to understand, as of now India China relations are adversarial relations, and in fact Chinese influence and presence has been increasing enormously in India's neighborhood. And looking at Bangladesh's close proximity to India and a strategically important chicken neck corridor, which is a very important for India's connectivity to the rest of the northeastern part of India. This chicken neck corridor is sandwiched between both China and Bangladesh, and in this context China would eventually maintain a very close and friendly relations with Bangladesh, and that would be very costly for India in the coming days. And apart from that, USA also wanted to secure a military base in the region, particularly in Bangladesh, and it would also be detrimental for India's interests having a US or foreign military base very close to India. And the situation, while not a classic color revolution that took place in Eastern Europe, and that was led by the students in Eastern Europe, and in fact the situation which is existing in Bangladesh allows the external forces to further influence Bangladesh future direction and even the regional alliances as well. However, there are a lot of concerns for India because of the existing situation or deteriorating conditions, instability, violence in the South Asian region, particularly India's eastern neighbor. So therefore, we would also look into the specific concerns that India would face because of the existing situation in Bangladesh. The shift in the government or the governance in Bangladesh raises a lot of concerns about the potential erosion of democratic norms, and in fact after the liberation of Bangladesh in 1971, Bangladesh over a period of time made a transformation towards democracy, and Bangladesh had a democratic culture, but with this protest, resignation of Sheikh Hasina, and even formation of interim government which has been getting the support of the Bangladeshi army, would over a period of time have the potential to erode the existing democratic norms. And also there is a rising influence of these Islamist radical parties in Bangladesh, and in fact Islamist radical parties would promote growth of radicalization and militancy within Bangladesh, and that would further create internal security problems for India in the coming future. So therefore India should effectively deal with such threats emanating from both India's western neighbor Pakistan and eastern neighbor Bangladesh as well. And in fact it would not just threaten the national security of India, rather it would also threaten the regional stability, and even it poses number of other security challenges for India. And in fact India from several decades have been looking to balance the religious and political dynamics in India's neighboring states, and in this context it has to be seen how India would deal with these security threats that would emanate from Bangladesh in the coming days. And in fact India will also face the risk of increased militant activity. When Sheikh Hasina was the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, India and Bangladesh successfully countered the militant organizations and insurgency groups which used to get shelter in Bangladesh, but their operations were based in the northeastern part of India. But the new interim government and the rise of Islamist radical organizations could Bangladesh become, or Bangladesh could even shelter the anti-India forces within its territory, and that would be a cause of concern for India. And in fact, this interim government could even favor China in its foreign policy, and that would be a geopolitical and geostrategic concern for India in a very near future. However, the existing and evolving situation in Bangladesh could further increase or exacerbate the regional security issues, and these regional security issues including the Rohingya crisis as well. And we have seen this Rohingya crisis is one of the major crises within India's neighborhood in the Rakhine state of Myanmar, and as of now India has not been allowing the Rohingya refugees into India because of the internal security challenges and even illegal immigration into India's ethnically sensitive and volatile northeastern region, and even the rise of Islamist radicalism. All these are going to pose major challenges for India in the coming days. However, the interplay between Bangladesh and Myanmar, which have struck with the crisis, and there is a political crisis, and external powers and non-state actors have been looking for the opportunities to destabilize the region, and Southeast Asia may influence India's strategic environment in the coming days, requiring a new diplomatic and security strategies from the Indian side. So in this context, we have to see how India would navigate these geopolitical challenges which are created by the ongoing crisis in Bangladesh. So this is what the author has been discussing about. And next, a very important article. So this article is about Pradhan Mantri. We all knew about this Ayushman Bharat program, right? So what is this Ayushman Bharat program is all about, or this is also known as PMJ, PM Jan Arogya Yojana. So PM Jan Arogya Yojana is a health insurance scheme, and in fact it is world's largest health insurance scheme which is publicly funded, and PMJ provides a 5 lakh rupees of health cover to every household every year, right? So under this PMJ or Ayushman Bharat program, around 55 crore households, poor households, would benefited from the health insurance scheme, and it is also expected to reduce the out of pocket healthcare expenditure of India's poor. However, as of now, this Ayushman Bharat program will not be extended to old age people who are aged above 70 years, but recent cabinet decision, the Union Cabinet has decided to extend the Ayushman Bharat program to old age people who are above 70 years of age. And in fact, it is a welcome initiative from the government, because old age people are vulnerable and they are also at the highest need, they also have the highest need of receiving the health care. Extending Ayushman Bharat program to India's old age would certainly benefit them, right? So we'll understand the context of this article. The context is that the Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, on Wednesday approved the health coverage to all senior citizens who are aged 70 years or above, irrespective of their income, under the Ayushman Bharat, or even it is known as Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, or it is known as PMJ program. However, so when we talk about the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, so this scheme will benefit nearly 4.5 crore families with 6 crore senior citizens, and providing them with around 5 lakh free health insurance cover on a family basis. So this is the objective of PMJ, or this particular program of Ayushman Bharat. And in this cabinet decision, so some details were also announced. The details including persons aged 70 and above, irrespective of their socio-economic status, will be eligible to get the benefits under Ayushman Bharat program or Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. And in fact, the eligible senior citizens will be issued a distinct new identity cards under this scheme to provide the benefits of this Ayushman Bharat program of providing healthcare insurance to old age people. And some other details with respect to the Ayushman Bharat program is that senior citizens who are belonging to the families who are already covered under the Ayushman Bharat or Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana will usually get an additional top-up cover of 5 lakh per family for themselves. And now imagine that there is a family of 5, and within the family of 5 there is a one person who is above 70 years of age, right? So one person who is above the 70 years of age. Now in this context, so as per the PM Jai program, so there will be 2 health insurance covers, one for the family of 4, 5 lakh rupees of health insurance cover for the family of 4, and one person is above 70 years, and additional 5 lakh rupees of top up will also be provided for this old age person under this new revised scheme of Ayushman Bharat, right? So in fact, which they do not have to share with the other members of the family who are below the age of 70 years, because below the age of 70 years there is also another healthcare coverage for the family members who are below the 70 years of age. So there are certain other cabinet announcements announced by the government. So one was health cover for the senior citizens, and another important announcements as part of this cabinet decision of the union government, right? So in fact, all other senior citizens who are aged above 70 will get a cover of up to 5 lakh per year on a family basis, and senior citizens who are already getting the benefits of other public health insurance schemes. There are number of other public health insurance schemes as well, such as central government health scheme and ex-serviceman contributory health scheme, and even Ayushman Central Armed Police Force. So they can either choose their existing scheme, or they can also opt for Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. So this is the details with respect to the old age people who are already having the benefits of other health insurance schemes. And in fact, senior citizens who are aged 70 and above and who are under the private health insurance policies, or even they are already covered by the employees state insurance scheme, so they will also eligible to get the benefits under Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana. And if you look at some details with respect to the Ayushman Bharat program, so this Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana is considered as the world's largest publicly funded health insurance program. So this was launched by the union government. And some other details with respect to the Ayushman Bharat program is that it usually provides health cover of up to 5 lakh per family per year for both secondary and tertiary care hospitalization to 55 crore individuals, corresponding to 12.34 crore families across India. Right? So these are some details with respect to the Ayushman Bharat program. I hope you have understood about this article. And next article is about the madrasas, and this madrasas are considered as religious institutions for Muslims in India, and madrasas also provide the primary and secondary education for children who belong to the Muslim religion. So however, so in one of its submission, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, which is considered as a top child rights protection body, has replied to the Supreme Court that these madrasas are unfit for proper education, or they are unfit for providing a proper and a decent education for children. And in fact, these madrasas, or providing education through madrasas, is also a violation of children's right to education. And we will understand some details with respect to the submission of this National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, and what is this issue and how it violates some of the fundamental rights of children as well. Recently, the National Commission for the Protection of Child Rights, and in fact this commission is considered as the top child rights protection body in the country, has told the Supreme Court that madrasas, as I have already told you, these madrasas are educational institutions for the Muslim religious community, and they impart the primary and secondary education for the Muslim children. And in fact, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights told the Supreme Court that these madrasas are unsuitable, and even they are unfit places for children to receive a proper and a decent education. So this is what is the submission of the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights to the Supreme Court. And in fact, the commission has also said the textbooks which are given in these madrasas usually profess the supremacy of Islam, and it is a religious education. It is not a decent and quality education, rather it is a religious education which is not secular, which has been professing the children supremacy of one single religion. And because of that reason, these madrasas are unsuitable and unfit to provide education for the children. And in fact, this National Commission for Protection of Child Rights has also highlighted the issues with respect to the curriculum which is being followed in these madrasas, and the eligibility of teachers is also compromised, and even the opaque funding which lacks the transparency, and even violation of land laws where these madrasas are located, and even they also failed to provide children with a holistic and a comprehensive education, and even a holistic environment as problems associated with the madrasas. So madrasas have been resulting in all these issues. So therefore, these madrasas are unfit to provide education to children, and it is a gross violation of children's fundamental right to get a decent amount of quality education under Article 21A of the Indian Constitution. And if you look at what are these madrasas? A madrasa is an Arabic word, and madrasa in Arabic means an educational institution, and madrasa education seems to be working on the old traditional outline because there is no prominence in any research in these madrasas. Madrasas will never encourage education, particularly research and practical knowledge. Rather, it usually practices or professes the supremacy of Islamic religion. And in fact, they are also considered as centers of free education, and they are the heart of cultural and even educational life of Muslims, and they began in the 7th century for those who wanted to learn the Islamic religion in mosques, right? So this is very briefly about the Islamic madrasas. However, so apart from that, so as of now, the majority of madrasas have no idea as to how to plan social events or even the extracurricular activities such as field trips that could provide students with some level of experimental learning. And madrasa's education is neither all encompassing nor thorough. Okay, so this is the problem with respect to the madrasas, and in fact these madrasas also infringe on children's fundamental right to good education, and article 21A of the Indian Constitution talks about the right to free and compulsory education of children. Under article 21A of the Indian Constitution, every child who is between 6 to 14 years would get the quality education. However, madrasas infringe on children's fundamental right to good education by failing to provide these basic requirements as well. And in fact, children are very often denied not only suitable education but also a healthy atmosphere which is required in schools and educational institutions, and these madrasas also deny the improved opportunities for the growth as well. And in fact, providing Islamic religious education for students who belong to non-Muslim communities is also the violation of another fundamental right, which is article 28 clause 3 of the Indian Constitution, which upholds the right against forced participation in religious instruction and even worship, right? So this is about madrasas and the poor quality of education which is being imparted to children who belong to the Muslim communities, and how it is considered violation of a fundamental right under article 21A of the Indian Constitution. And the next, a very important article, and in fact it is one of the cabinet decision that the Union Cabinet has taken along with the 70 years of aged individuals who are above 70 years of age will be provided the benefits of health insurance under Ayushman Bharat. And this is another very important scheme which is aimed to give a fillip to the e-mobility across India. Now, why e-mobility is very important? Electric mobility in India is very important. Why? Because of the climate change concerns that we have been facing, and climate change driven disasters, and reduced usage of the fossil fuels, because fossil fuels emit the greenhouse gases, and the greenhouse gases would lead to the global warming, and global warming would eventually lead to the climate change. And most of the transportation as of now in India is based on the burning of fossil fuels, and therefore in order to transform our existing transportation sector, in order to make a transition from the fossil fuel based transportation sector to electric based transportation sector, the Union government has decided to give a push to the e-mobility in India. The context is that Union Cabinet on Wednesday has approved a scheme with an outlay of 10,900 crore to provide procurement of electric buses, as well as for setting up more than 72,000 charging stations for electric vehicle batteries in cities and on highways to address the range of anxiety among the buyers. So this was the decision that was taken as part of the Union Cabinet decision. And in fact, the name of this particular scheme is Prime Minister Electric Drive Revolution Initiative Vehicle Enhancement, which in short is also called as PM e-drive, and this scheme would be valid for around 2 years in India. And in fact, this scheme also offers subsidies or demand incentives worth of 3,679 crore for two-wheelers and even three-wheelers, and even electric ambulances and electric trucks to the buyers, right? So incentives essentially means the subsidies will be offered as an incentive for the buyers of a range of electric vehicles across India. And in fact, a total of rupees 4,391 crore will be set aside under the scheme for the procurement of around 14,028 electric buses by respective state transportation corporations undertaking in 9 different cities with the population of more than 40 lakh. So these cities including Delhi, Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Surat, Bangalore, Pune and Hyderabad. So these are different cities, and in these different cities the electric buses will be introduced on a large scale to make cities pollution free, and electric vehicles would make the existing cities would not emit the harmful gases into the environment. They would not pose a new healthcare threats for the people who are living in these urban areas, to make urban transportation a greener and also environment friendly as well. And this scheme actually provides 2000 crore to set up the charging stations in select cities and with high electric vehicle penetration on some specified highways, right? So electric vehicle charging stations, a charging infrastructure is also very important when we have plans to introduce electric vehicles on large scale to Indian roads. Now in this context, what are the electric vehicles and what are the benefits of electric vehicles and what are the challenges which are associated with these electric vehicles? So we will try to understand this. Now when we talk about the electric vehicles, these electric vehicles are a type of vehicle that use one or more electric motors for propulsion instead of the traditional combustion engine that burns gasoline or even diesel. So this is the simple definition of electric vehicles, and in fact conventional vehicles which we are using, they generally use the internal combustion engine. Okay, so these internal combustion engines usually burn gasoline and diesel, and they also release large scale greenhouse gases into the environment. However, on the other hand, the electric vehicles use motors for the propulsion. They use electric motors for the propulsion. Now what are the benefits of electric vehicles and why the governments and the private sector and a wide range of stakeholders have been looking to introduce electric vehicles on a large scale across Indian roads? And they usually produce zero tailpipe emissions, and they also contributing to the cleaner air and even improved public health as well. And because of that reason, so electric vehicles have been getting a lot of craze in the minds of the people. And in fact, electricity is considered as cheaper compared to the gasoline, and that would also lead to the lower fuel costs per kilometer. And electric motors generate a significantly less noise compared to gasoline engines, and electric motors convert a higher percentage of energy into usable power compared to the gasoline engines. And because of all these benefits, now governments have been looking towards the electric vehicles instead of the traditional internal combustion engine based vehicles. And it is these electric vehicles is not free from the challenges. There are certain challenges as well. So if you look at those challenges, so compared to these internal combustion engine vehicles, a similar electric car can be significantly more expensive. For a country like India, where people would usually look for the less expensive car, it would be little challenging to convince the people to purchase electric vehicles. So adoption of electric vehicles would be further delayed because of this reason. And in fact, we do not have a significantly strong charging infrastructure across the country. India's charging infrastructure for electric vehicles is still in its early stages of development, and this would be another challenge. While the number of charging stations is increasing, they are concentrated mainly in major cities, and the current Indian automotive workforce is not adequately equipped to handle the complexities of these electric vehicle technologies as well, right? So the next important so which is also a mains practice question that we have been discussing every day, and today also I have some other important mains practice question. The question is, how can cities cope up with the climate change induced floods that poses a great challenge to urban communities all over the world, right? So in fact, in recent times, if you see that most of the Indian cities are vulnerable to floods. So we have seen floods in cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, and even Delhi. So most of Indian cities are highly vulnerable to these floods, and we need to look into the major reasons for these floods, and what has been causing the urban floods, and what are the ways through which we could mitigate this problem and we could make our cities more and more resilient. And that would be the demand of this particular question. The approach is that first and foremost, you need to introduce climate change induced floods and vulnerability of Indian cities, and then write the causes for the rise of urban floods in India, and then you need to write measures for the mitigation of these urban floods and how can we reduce the vulnerability of Indian cities to these floods, and conclude the answer by stressing on resilient cities in India. Right, so in the introduction, so first and foremost, you need to write, as the incidence of climate variability and even extreme weather events have been increasing enormously in recent times, urban flooding becomes more and more common in recent days. So we have also seen Indian cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai, Delhi, a number of other cities have been frequently facing the problem of these urban floods. However, untimely heavy rains can be attributed to the climate variability, and this climate variability has resulted in untimely heavy rainfall across different parts of India. The urban flooding is largely due to the unplanned urbanization, which is one of the most serious problem in India's urban cities. And in this context, so we will try to understand the causes of rise in urban floods due to the climate change. So climate change is one reason for the floods across different parts of India, and urban floods is caused by the climate change as well. And in fact, several parts of India have been experiencing heavy rainfall, torrential rainfall, and as per the Indian Meteorological Department, monsoon has become more and more frequent and it has become unpredictable, and this is one of the major reason for increased intensity and frequency of floods across different parts of India, and cities are becoming more and more vulnerable to these floods. And storm surges for coastal cities, example the cyclone Amphan that struck the eastern coast of India, particularly West Bengal in the year 2020, flooded the streets of Kolkata. And within eastern India, this storm has killed around 98 people, and it has also caused 13.8 billion damages, right? So infrastructure damages, loss of lives, economic damages across different parts of eastern India. So you could imagine the nature of devastation which is being caused by the climate change driven heavy rainfall, and that eventually leading to the floods across different areas. And apart from that, the inadequate drainage infrastructure which is existing in major cities like Hyderabad, Mumbai, so they usually depend on centuries old drainage system covering only a small part of the core city, and this is also another major problem which has led to the problem of urban floods. And as the city grew beyond its original limits, not much was done to address the absence of adequate drainage system. So therefore, in this context, we need to address the management of the proper management of drainage is very, very important to mitigate frequent urban floods that Indian cities have been experiencing. And even Indian cities are becoming increasingly impervious to water, not just because of increasing built up, but also because of the nature of materials which are being used, such as hard non-porous construction material that makes the soil impervious. And even encroaching of natural spaces, encroaching of floodplains. For example, when we talk about encroachment of natural spaces in Delhi, Yamuna floodplains are being encroached upon, and this is one of the major reasons for the frequent floods which impacts the Delhi city. And the number of wetlands have reduced to 123 in 2018 from 644 in 1956, and even the green cover is only just 9%, which ideally should have been at least 33% as well. And in fact, there are a lot of suggestions to mitigate the problem of urban floods. So if you look at those suggestions, so urban floods on this scale, they cannot be contained by the municipal authorities alone, and urban floods cannot be managed without the concerted and even focused investments on energy and resources. And in fact, so it usually requires a holistic approach. A holistic approach is very, very important to mitigate the urban floods. The Metropolitan Developmental Authorities and National Disaster Management Authority, which is considered as a nodal authority to mitigate the disasters across the country, and even state revenue and irrigation departments along with the municipal corporations should be involved in such a work which is holistic and comprehensive to mitigate the problem of urban floods in India. And in fact, there is a need to start paying more attention to the management of wetlands involving the local communities, so that we could usually revive and rejuvenate these urban floods. And in fact, watershed management and even emergency drainage plan should be carefully enunciated in plan and law, and vulnerability assessment and even risk assessment should form part and parcel of city master plans. So all these mitigation measures have to be undertaken to make Indian cities less prone to the frequent floods. However, so these can all be delivered effectively through urban mission along the lines of a scheme called Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. And another important scheme is National Heritage City Development and Augmentation Yojana, which is also called as Hriday scheme, and the government has also launched Smart Cities mission. So all these missions have to be converged to make urban cities or Indian cities more and more resilient to these disasters, most importantly frequent floods. And urban flood management is not just help control recurring floods, but also respond to other fault lines, provide for water security, more greener spaces, and will make the city more and more resilient and even sustainable as well, right? So that's all in this lecture. I hope you have got some knowledge from this session, and if you like our work, please subscribe our YouTube channel and also hit the like button. So thank you.